charges initially filed against Maduro in 2020. Trump told reporters from his Mar-a-Lago resorts. Ah! From his Mar-a-Lago resorts, he told reporters that the U.S. will run Venezuela until the country has a peaceful transition of power. The link in the chat. It's okay. Today we will be discussing Venezuela and the reality on the ground that we kidnapped a world leader, the American empire. The peace president decided that he was going to come out and say, hey, you know, it'd be a great idea if we just did, like, fucking, I don't know, is that larceny? Is that what that's called? What even is larceny? Can't even spell. Larceny of person? I don't know. Larceny of a head of state. Unlawful taking or theft of personal property of another person or business. Yeah. I guess Machado wasn't necessarily... not Machado. Maduro wasn't necessarily property of Venezuela, but, like, it's the same stuff. You know? You can't just... We are doing larceny. With the oil. Yes. Let's commit grand larceny via kidnapping the fucking leader. Genuine... It breaks the brain to try and understand specifically what this whole point is, because there's no effort to manufacture consent, at least on the part of... Let me turn that down on my side. There's no effort to, like, at least try to manufacture consent for this in a way that, like, anybody can even make sense of it. The right-wingers who usually have, like, immediate talking points, who are, like, so against it. Some of them are jumping on ship, some of them are jumping off ship. It's a huge mess on just, like, the reaction landscape as to what is happening. Actually do not use Twitter like that, but hold on. Log in. I'm gonna log into Twitter so that we can not sign up. Like, already have an account. It says get Grok below that. What does that mean? You mean, like, to buy the Grok subscription? So that they can try and turn this freaking, what's it called? This CSAM generating AI model profitable. My Venezuelan friends are celebrating right now. Their Venezuelan friend. Yeah. White ass niggas. Yeah, no. The only people who, like, genuinely think this is a good idea are people who are either bricked in the fucking head, right, by just, like, over, like, propagandized again and again and again and again and again until their brains are mush and they just see whatever Trump is doing and say, yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, no. Yeah, that's totally dope. I like it. No, this is awesome, right? In the United States, right? Because even before this happened, no one was on board. No, not even the Republicans were on board. But they do have him with some sort of, like, infallibility. That's just, like, the nature of Donald Trump, right? Is that he will have complete immunity to his base in terms of his, like, moral actions until it hits Epstein. The new YouGov poll came out like it was New Year's Eve, right? And the only one in which Trump was like underwater with his own base with, not even like underwater, but like the water was like getting to his neck. Is Epstein. Is the he said something like it's like 89% approval rating on Epstein, which was incredibly. Well, I guess 89% saying he's doing great on Epstein. Which, not 89, 58. I don't know why I'm dyscalculating, bro. I don't have good grasp on numbers. But it's 58%, under 60% of Trump's base thinks that he is doing a great job on the Epstein files, which is a staunch departure from every single other topic, in which it's like 90 to 80%. I think if I can find the YouGov poll, it's wild, genuine. And it's not like they deny reality in terms that like they see their material conditions, right? Nobody like sees the current economic state and thinks, yeah, no, we're doing good right now. The reason they're still clinging on is because they still have hope that things are going to turn around for them specifically. Things are still going to get worse. They know they're going to get worse for other people, right? But they're still holding out hope that somehow, some way, in whatever regards, it'll benefit them. And they think Trump doesn't commit an action unless he knows it's going to benefit someone. And they think that someone includes them. It almost never does. I hate this microphone. I think I will. I just need a mic stand. That's all I need. That's really all I need. All right, we're putting that. Okay. I'm going to keep this right here because I hate giving my whole side profile just to talk. Where is it? We said YouGov polling. Research reality. Charges against Maduro. American Latin policy. Well, same difference. Book reading, U.S. running Venezuela, latest economy poll. Yeah. Trump's second term approval rating. Approved. Yeah, it's a 42% approval rating. It's dropping. Where? Public data. Okay. Business and economy, politics and current affairs. All topics. Donald John. Where can I get the actual like surveys? I did share it with a friend. I think I'm gonna put on some live news until I can find it specifically, because I really don't know how to navigate the YouGov website. Is there anything live? That's a live reaction. Damn. 6 hours from the AP. 12 hours from MSNBC. Okay, I'm not gonna look at anything live. There's a minute. Oh my god.
I mean, AI can now build a website in 90 seconds, while the only AI most people over 40 know is ChatGPT.
The United States hit Venezuela with a large-scale strike early Saturday and said its president, Nicolás Maduro, had been captured and flown out of the country. Here's what to know. Multiple explosions and low-flying aircraft were seen in Caracas in the early hours of Saturday morning. Maduro's government immediately accused the US of an imperialist attack on civilian and military installations.
Because that's what it is.
Donald Trump posted on Truth Social that Maduro had been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the
Kidnapped.
country. He added that the operation was
Just
done
like
in
plucked.
conjunction with US law enforcement. The apparent attack itself
me.
lasted less than 30 minutes. Trump said in his social media post that the strike was carried out successfully. It comes after the Trump administration has escalated pressure on Maduro, who has decried US military operations against alleged drug traffickers as a thinly veiled effort to oust him from power.
Yeah,
not
it's always been
immediately
about
clear
oil.
who was running the country, and Maduro's whereabouts were
And for
not
Trump
immediately
specifically
known.
about legacy. What are the implications? Okay.
Well,
Here.
the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift,
U.S. Special Forces capture Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro in a daring attack that's taken the country and the world by surprise. He denied allegations by President Donald Trump of heading a narcotics cartel. So what are the implications of Washington's actions? This is Inside Story. Hello again, I'm James Bays. Despite months of intense US pressure on Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro, his capture by US Special Forces has stunned not just him, but the world at large. Accused of heading a narcotics cartel, Maduro is expected to face trial in the US, with questions mounting about the legality of his arrest. The attack was welcomed by Argentina's President Javier Milei, but condemned by the
All right, I I got it in PDF format. There we go. Can I zoom in on this at all? I have no idea how to use this. Well, okay. Thumbnails close. Zoom. Okay, here we go. Okay, I guess not. There we go. There we go. These are all the topics. Zoom out a little bit. We're going to look at... It was anti-establishment battery, graduating from top university. Yes, bro. We are all incredibly anti-establishment. Look at that. 80%, 80%, 70%, 90% across the board. Every single person. Any one of these anti-establishment, like, little pieces, you don't see a single one under 60%. Nothing in terms of agreed, right? In terms of the majority. Completely agree, right? And I guess this is like a combination of these two, right? The majority of Americans are anti-establishment. That is just simply a fact, right? It's a cheat code for winning elections, is to pit your Hispanic voters, leaders who come from ordinary backgrounds, better represent people like me. The only people under here are age 35, and then independents. Yeah. Along those lines. Generally, you're gonna be more establishment. But where is the Trump thing? The cheat codes for elections this year are gonna be Medicare for all still has a little bit of pushback. But claiming to be anti-establishment, being like anti-oligarch or whatever, even if you don't have like any tangible policies that will like win you a thing, affordability is gonna be a big thing. But it's gonna get like less real as we go along. And then being anti-Israel is gonna be like, oh, you're in, basically. Right? And that'll stay until I actually don't know. There might be some precedent to say that the pro-Israel side is gonna win out among the Republicans, probably not the Democrats. Hopefully push the whole party more left. This is where we start to see a lot more disagreement. Bipartisan agreement usually signals a policy is reasonable and well thought out. Also simply isn't true. Anti-establishment better, usually in good faith. When you see institutions are usually acting in good faith, even when their decisions hurt people underwater. Nothing over 40%. Everything over, almost everything, over 50% for all of these categories. Because, again, niggas see what's going on. Here it is. This is what I was looking for. Do you approve or disapprove of the way that Trump is handling his job as presidency? Right? Most people disapprove. It's hovering around 40%, right? Black voters, we know what's up, right? Harris voters apparently also know what's up. Libs, Democrats, right. And registered voters, only 42. Anywho, 80% right there, right? Just like general for Republicans, 87% for Republican leaning, just like conservatives, yeah. For education, 70. 80, right? Abortion, 70. Rare. We have the environment, 70, right? What we have here, 70 on healthcare, right? Healthcare is crazy. This is the guy who said he was gonna give you magical healthcare beds, and that was gonna solve all of your health, the med beds or whatever. And then niggas believed him, and then he never did anything with that and just like lied. All right, here's the kicker. Jeffrey Epstein, right? Among registered voters, 28%. Among Republicans, under 60%, right? Under 60% on conservatives, under 60, about 50 with right-leaners, right? And the further we go, we can see that the administration itself is kind of a little bit better than just Epstein broadly, but not too much. Thune is not even with the reps, right? Chuck Schumer, ain't nobody like Schumer, and we all know Schumer's up to. He's just institutional, just there for power, right? A lot of these institutional Zionist Democrats, don't care about any of you, and what it seems like is that Republicans see that when it comes to Epstein, and see that when it comes to their Republicans in Congress. I guess the Trump effect kind of follows the conservatives in office, conservatives in Congress, simply because they all kissed the ring, right? Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. When Trump falls, I think they're going to necessarily fall. Spending, veterans, spending Medicare. Oh, yeah. Okay. Back to
Chilean leader Gabriel Boric. European leaders who've long opposed Maduro are urging restraint.
Also, interesting thing about this YouGov poll. When I was looking at it first, I was really, really confused because it hadn't said anything whatsoever about Israel. There was not even a single polled position on that. Which is very curious. I am curious as to why that was the case. We can look at some more more modern polls Not like more modern, because that one was literally Christmas Eve. But we can look at some more polls in terms of the general, all right, topics. Guy, it's by alphabetical order, dude. Dog. Doubt the political establishment. Plus views on the economy and Ukrainian aid. Duh, 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 duh. Benjamin Netanyahu. Imagine being fucking Machado right now. Oh my god, poor thing. I'm sure she's tired. I'm sure her throat fucking hurts from like sucking on it so hard for so long just for Trump to come in his own mouth. YouGov rating measures the popularity of fame and of anything and everything based off of millions of respondents. Surveys. Which of the following is closer to your views of here? You should be a good neighbor and avoid interfering in domestic affairs. 46%. That's the majority of Americans do not want this, have not wanted this. There will be a growing number of Americans who do want this and will go ahead and like advocate for things like this just because that's what like the base is responding to is like action. Not even results, it's just actions, it seems. And what's his name? I was talking to a right winger today at a protest, right? And he was telling me it wasn't like a real protest. It was a sign waving just to remind people, hey, lock in, focus up, right? And this right winger came up to counter us, right? And he was talking to us, right? He was telling us that the Epstein files had like all already been released and they had proved that Trump wasn't in them at all, which simply isn't the case. Simply isn't the case. In fact, the what we have implicates him in slightly more like incredibly like not even slightly in incredibly despicable ways, and it implicates him in ways that just makes it completely visible as to his not like level of involvement. We have no idea about that yet just because we don't have any of those documents, but just like level of insecurity about it and level of potential ceiling as that tip was insane. That FBI tip is insane, and we just don't have the ability to double check as to whether or not that tip is credible or not, simply because we don't have access to any of that information. Anywho,
but have made no criticism. So what's this mean for Venezuela and Latin America? And what's it mean for Trump at home and abroad? We'll speak to our panel of guests shortly. But first, this report from Paul Ging.
The end for the presidency of Nicolás Maduro. When it came, it was swift, but there was defiance from state television just before news of his capture.
The Republic of Venezuela rejects, condemns, and denounces before the international community the grave military aggression perpetrated by the current government of the United States of America
as they
Venezuelan
should.
territory and the population in the civilian and military areas of the city of Caracas, the capital of the Republic.
It's despicable
President
and illegal
Maduro's
on every
capture
front.
comes after months of intensifying pressure, including military action by the US. There was pressure from within the country too, hyperinflation and constant economic crisis, with more than 7 million Venezuelans leaving the country since 2015. Already tense relations with
Maduro's presidency has not seen a lot of economic growth, does not justify anything. And Trump is directly to blame for a lot of that in terms of his attitudes and relations with Venezuela over the years, deepening this economic uncertainty within Venezuela actively. So he definitely has a lot of part to blame for that. Maduro isn't just like a fucking dumbass. It's a hard job, especially when you're poised at the position of being like just like so Like you're automatically in the position of being against the biggest guy in your region simply because you're the president of Venezuela, right? Of Venezuela, socialist Venezuela, next to the biggest empire in the entire world.
Washington dramatically worsened under Donald Trump, leading to new economic
And also sanctions, just like generally since fucking since the other guy, who's his name? The guy before, not before Maduro, but like a, a couple days before, a couple presidencies before, or whatever. Like the super popular guy, Chavez, I think.
and diplomatic sanctions.
Right, he's no
The
Chavez,
US also offered a $50
but also
million
that's
reward
insane.
for
That's
information
ridiculous.
leading to Maduro's arrest. Trump accused Maduro of being a narco-terrorist and deployed warships and fighter jets in the Caribbean. The US also
With
began
no reason, evidence, sort of conversation, as to why that makes any sense.
a series of attacks on boats it accused of transporting drugs to the US without providing any proof. US forces began seizing ships that they suspected of violating sanctions. Maduro denounced the US strikes and rejected calls to stand down, but on New Year's Day he offered the US talks on narcotics and oil.
Yeah,
His
he
capture by US special
has just not wanted any sort of confrontation, has he? Not like any sort of confrontation, but like he really has not been like pushing to necessarily like be at war, and I wouldn't be either, right? Um, but simply put, America could not have that, would not have that, and chose that the better option instead was to fucking kidnap him.
ends 13 years in power after succeeding Hugo Chavez. Maduro was declared the preferred successor by the gravely ill Chavez and narrowly won the subsequent election. As the economic crisis worsened, opposition demonstrations were met with brutal force, with leaders jailed. In July 2024, Maduro was re-elected as president in a vote that the US and other Western nations say was rigged. Protests continued, but in the end it was the intervention of the US which brought him down. Despite its vast oil riches, Venezuela now finds itself facing an uncertain future, without a president and an economy spiraling out of control. Paul Ging,
Yeah.
Al Jazeera, for Inside Story.
And I'm pretty sure Trump just wants to control it himself, is what he was fucking saying at those press conferences, if I remember correctly. He was like, no, Machado, she's stupid. That broad, she doesn't know what she's saying. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Ain't nobody likes her. You know who people like? They like me, and so just like Gaza, I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna control it. It's mine. It's Trump Gaza. It's Trump Venezuela, and we're gonna turn it into a vacation home, just like my favorite island. It reminds me of my favorite island. It'll be so pretty, and there'll be so many beautiful women.
Well, let's discuss these dramatic developments with our guest today in the Venezuelan capital, Caracas.
Why does he have
Phil
that
Gunson, senior analyst
stash?
for the Andes
Yo.
project. These dramatic developments with our guest today in the Venezuelan capital, Caracas. Phil
That
Gunson,
might just
senior
be
analyst for the Andes
the
project,
coloring.
International Crisis
That's
Group.
crazy.
In Washington, D.C., Richard Weitz, a U.S. security analyst and senior fellow at the NATO
Who was
project,
that?
the International Crisis Group. In Washington, in the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, Phil Gunson, senior analyst for the Andes
Phil Gunson.
project at the International Crisis Group. In Washington, D.C., Richard Weitz, a U.S. security
Richard
analyst and
Weitz.
senior fellow at the NATO Defense College. And in Uruguay's capital, Montevideo, Timur Porras, former foreign policy advisor to President Hugo Chavez and former chief of staff to President Nicolás Maduro. Thank you, all three of you, for talking to us. Excellent panel to discuss these important developments. Let me start with you,
sure.
Phil, because you're in Caracas. You're here to give us political analysis. But you used to be a reporter, so I'm going to start with you just to ask you, how does it feel now in Caracas, and how shocked were you when you heard this news?
Now in Caracas, it's all calm and peaceful. As you can imagine, there are not many people on the streets. From where I sit, which is looking out over the western half of the city, you really wouldn't know it from a normal day, except for the lack of traffic and the relative silence, except for the birdsong. Was I shocked? Well, you know, when you're woken up in the early hours of the morning with something like this, yes, there's an element of shock. But at the same time, of course, President Trump had been threatening to do this for months now.
He has, yeah.
And pretty much, you know, we were getting bored with the endless questions about, you know, when is it going to be?
He was also one aspect of the political analysis that I think a lot of people want to neglect simply because it's just like it seems so inconsequential it seems so small. It doesn't seem like there's like genuine precedent as to like this is the thing that is making him make the decisions that he wants to make. It's simply because he doesn't like he's fucking guilty. There's guilt eating at him in that he recognizes that his crimes with Jeffrey Epstein are going to come to light, right? He doesn't want them to. He's going to do everything in his power to distract from that before it happens, right? But he also is going to try and do things that like he would see as good things across the world. He would try and do virtuous things to try and build up to try and build up this sort of reputation, this sort of legacy that he can leave before he has to basically like throw in the towel and say, okay, this is what I have left, right? His personal ambition for a lot of the actions that are happening across the world, right? Not necessarily like the reason we chose Venezuela, right? Not necessarily the reason we chose to bomb Nigeria, but the reason that Trump is actively pushing for a war, any war, right? He wants to do this with Mexico. He wanted to do this with Mexico first, but then there was like no logistics as to how to be able to do that. Like in the same like effective sort of like, oh look, it's a show of power kind of way. So yeah, no, it's about Trump being able to leave a legacy, and he thinks this is going to be good for his legacy. That's part of it. I think with Venezuela, just like generally also, a lot of these shows of power have been just the way that America has been trying to like recenter itself on the world stage as the whole globe starts to recognize that America is not the perfect actor it wants to portray itself as. It is not the world police, and it is not a good world police, even if it was. And people are starting to wake up to that, and people are starting to wake up to the fact that we're like weak. And honestly, I think that should be a fucking good thing. Just like generally to people across the world, if you see the fall of the American empire as somehow detrimental to you, I think you're severely mistaken. Nothing about this empire has been for your benefit. It's been for the benefit of the very, very few. And you get fucking crumbs. You get treats. This is what you've been able to trickle down. This trickle down economics, what's been trickling down is you being able to afford a $200 TV, but not a fucking $1,000 insurance bill. Not fucking, a fucking $1,000 medical bill after insurance. That's the trickle down. Cut austerity, but make fucking the not even just the bread. The bread is getting more expensive, but make the circuses cheap as fuck. In fact, make them free. Then they won't do shit. In fact, make them so addicting. Make them so. Now I'm starting to sound like a conspiracy theorist. But no, like literally, like make them so addicting to the point where people just like kind of just want to do that all day. Just want to scroll TikTok all day, right? Whether or not that's on purpose, I'm sure it's a welcome byproduct from the social media tech giants of the world.
A lot of people thought it was sheer bluff. It turns out that it wasn't so much of a bluff after all.
So, Phil, just tell me, how likely a scenario, if I'd asked you 24 hours ago, would you have said the idea of a daring special forces raid to extract President Maduro was?
Well, people can check this. They can go back and look at what we said before. But we had always said from the beginning that this kind of operation, the bombing, a possible extraction of Maduro, was possible. It was one of the options that Trump was being offered. We thought the bombing was quite likely. We didn't think that it would be quite so sudden and so dramatic. The extraction was a much more difficult prospect, and I think it's reasonable to presume that there must have been some kind of help on the ground, presumably on the inside, in order for the US special forces to carry this off. It was obviously a very risky, high stakes gamble, and they appear to have pulled it off remarkably smoothly.
Well, I'd like to pick up that point about whether there was inside help with our two other guests. So, Tamir, let me ask you a couple of questions about this. I want to come to that point in a moment, but you are the only person.
Wouldn't have been Machado. Couldn't have been. Couldn't have been. Let me
On this
finish
panel who
something else.
knows President Maduro. How do you think he will have reacted? You know his personality, you know his behavior. How will he have reacted to what has happened?
Well, I believe, like anyone else facing the attack of a mighty military force, of course, he must have been overwhelmed by the attack that happened last night, which I should remind is a unilateral military attack of the United States. Even though it was announced, as Phil has mentioned, it's still a military attack of the United States armed forces on the capital of Venezuela, a country that hasn't made anything or taking any violent initiative vis-a-vis the United States, and even more so an attack to achieve exactly the opposite of the platform that President Trump was elected on, achieve a regime change that hasn't.
Not that they necessarily are all. So I guess the. Let me read this out loud. I'm Venezuelan and I support U.S. intervention types of guy. On a computer with a CIA types. Fucking, I can't read. The fuck. The CIA and Mossad are the ones typing, I'm Venezuelan and I support U.S. intervention, according to this meme. Oh my god, I'm so fucking bricked in the head, I can't even describe a fucking meme properly. Jesus Christ. I'm supposed to be a podcaster. What the hell? All roads lead to Mossad? Yeah. So I guess all the videos of Venezuelans celebrating in Venezuela are all CIA agents. There is recognition. You have to recognize that people are going to be stupid. People are going to see like objective things that will like make their lives actively worse. Um and they will celebrate them if they are different than what is happening now. That is just the fact. When there are worsening material conditions, people are much, much more open to incredibly odd, strange, whack ideas as to like how to like fix their country, including letting America fucking kidnap their president. Because it's different than what we have now. How much worse can it get is the perspective. And it will get so much worse given that now your president is our president too, basically. Ay. They glow, you shine. Inhale deeply, libs. I'm American and I support the drug cartels. What drug cartels? What cartel? Oh, this guy said Muslims don't like drugs. Taliban ended up on opium production. Dog. Okay. Literally right next to each other. Not a single Venezuelan I know is crying for Maduro. I'm a hardcore Democrat, so I don't say anything about me being a Republican plant. Yeah, you're a liberal is is the reality. You support imperialism because left, right, within the confines of American politics is right-wing infighting is okay, how much imperialism should we do across the world? Not if we should be doing imperialism. How much resources should we plunder? How should we blatantly, brazenly try and steal trillions of dollars worth of fucking oil reserves? It's also that's literally what Trump has said he was trying to do. Trump said it was about drug cartels, but then he also said that Venezuela stole our oil and we want it back. Over fucking fossil fuels, first of all. Also, stole your oil means you invested a little bit in the beginnings or like you set up that like economic reality in which Venezuela, the oil produced there is basically yours, right? Um, you set up an economic system in which you have control over the means of production of Venezuelan oil and where that goes. And then I think it was Chavez that nationalized it. And so he calls that theft. And so he wants to go ahead and take it right the fuck back. Bingo. Ugh. Every time they do this, it's a reminder that, oh yeah, Elon Musk really straight up did the Hitler salute. Um, yeah, no. That would incredibly aggressive, incredibly whatnot. Maduro, Xi Jinping, if you can hear me, Xi Jinping, please, please save me, Xi. And yeah, then Xi, with the guidance of Mao, is doing jack fucking shit. Ain't doing nothing. Refuses to do anything, and just kind of sits there, twiddling his thumbs, trade maxing. China first, I guess.
Been achieved because as the news have unfolded, President Nicolás Maduro has been abducted. That is also something that should be underlined. An action that is illegal under international law and under any legal framework. So President Maduro has been abducted, but the power structure in Venezuela, following the statements of the Minister of Defense, the Vice President of the Republic.
I don't even know if China's necessarily gonna, because the UN is going to hold a meeting. Like the special counsel or whatever. The fucking the U.S., France, the UK, India, and China. I think. I think India might veto it. China, I would not be surprised to see abstaining from a vote. Unless they, or not fucking veto, are gonna like, I don't know. I don't know too much about the UN. What I have seen is that there's no reality, at least as we can see right now, because crazy shit can apparently just fucking happen, in which the UN actually steps in and does some shit, unless Machado decides to liberate us.
Even though her whereabouts are, at least to my knowledge, not
Not
known.
Machado.
And the
What's her name? Scheinbaum, Claudia
Minister
Scheinbaum,
of Interior. So the power structure is still in
Mexico's
place.
president.
So how can this attack be justified to extract illegally the president and members of his family? And at the end of the day, the power structure of Venezuela remains in place. So we of course need to wait and see for what will happen. But at least at the very first, should we recall that this, irrespective of the opinion that anyone may have about the Venezuelan government, this is a very dangerous, illegal military attack against a sovereign nation and the people of Venezuela.
And we
we'll
have
come
to.
back to the legality and what happens next in more detail. But just drawing on your knowledge from being in the inner circle of Hugo Chavez and then Nicolás Maduro, and I know that you left Venezuela some time ago and you don't have fresh information, but one assumes every head of state has the tightest security. Can you see a scenario where US forces broke in and took the president without there being some inside help?
I imagine that, in geopolitics and in national politics, I was, for instance, present in the presidential palace in Venezuela in 2002 when a military coup backed by the United States again back then was conducted against then President Chavez. And what happened was that, at least for some hours, President Chavez then, in an effort to avoid a spillage of blood and generating a more uncertain situation, agreed to be removed from the palace, even though the military forces reinstated him afterwards. So the issue here is that the United States has been assuming in the past.
It'd be really funny if we woke up tomorrow and he was just back, in his position or whatever. Yeah, no. I that's a pattern that you see with Venezuelan presidents apparently, is that the they don't really like conflict.
that pressuring the Chavistas and pressuring President Maduro would generate
Oh, the Chavistas, fucking, the dead man switch.
an internal fracture of the power structure. I think this is relatively unlikely, and the fact that they had to conduct a military operation on the Venezuelan ground, I mean, it's sufficient to prove that if they wanted to remove President Maduro, they had to conduct a military operation. I don't see why there would, be a need for an internal complicity. That, in theory, can be possible. But in that case, why this deployment of military force? Why bombing civilian infrastructure?
Right.
We have been informed that
something over 40 people lost their lives in the operation.
Ports have been struck, that some civilian infrastructure within Caracas, residential areas have been struck. So why this deployment of military force if just a complicity inside the power structure of Venezuela was necessary? No, I think, once again, we need to focus on the fact that the U.S. had to resort to military force in order to achieve whatever the goals are. And so far, the goals seem to be the removal of President Nicolás Maduro.
Richard,
Again,
let me bring in Richard now, Temer, if you don't mind. Richard, if
Sounds
someone
good.
did help, they might be very rich today, mightn't they? Because the US had put the reward up. The wanted poster says that
Oh, yeah.
$50 million that they would get if they'd helped. What is your thought about how this operation was conducted? Because this was a pretty daring thing for a US president to order.
Yes,
Right.
as far as we can tell, it's been remarkably successful on a tactical level. And this scenario had been widely discussed for months, so it shouldn't come as a surprise that one of the options under consideration was to try and extract Maduro and bring him out of the country for trial in the U.S.
Right.
And
First
that
thing,
this occurred despite all this
2026, by the
advance
way.
warning and presumably awareness. Either it reflects the fact that either the guards were still recovering from New Year's Eve partying and had a hangover and weren't very alert, or more likely, somebody in Maduro's inner circle told them where Maduro would be when he would be most easily captured, and that's what the military acted on. And so I tend to agree that either the guards were
Okay, so the military help was more likely like an inside tip rather than a whole complicity of the state apparatus.
still recovering from New Year's Eve partying and had a hangover and weren't very alert, or more likely, somebody in Maduro's inner circle
Recovering from a New Year's Eve party, Jesus.
had been widely discussed for months, so it shouldn't
NATO
come as a
Defense
surprise
College.
that one of the options under consideration was to try.
Wait, author of New China Russia Alignment: Critical Challenges to U.S. Security.
So it shouldn't come as a surprise that one of the options under consideration was to try and extract Maduro and bring him out of the country for trial in the U.S.
He knows what he's talking about when it comes to the U.S. though.
Despite all this advance warning and
you gotta know his bias is
presumably awareness.
Why I'm like,
either it reflects the fact that either the guards were still recovering from New Year's Eve partying and had a hangover and weren't very alert, or more likely, somebody in Maduro's inner circle told them where Maduro would be when he would be most easily captured, and that's what the military acted on. And so I tend to agree that somebody who knew where he was and when it was going to be easy to extract him told the U.S. and will become a much richer person in coming months.
But if you look at
watch New Billionaires coming up, or it was 50 million, something like
historical examples, Richard. I mean, killing bin Laden in 2011, that was different because he wasn't a head of state. Being
right.
as a head of state,
it's just a
guarded,
guy. But even then,
to kill him, not to take him out alive. Noriega, the ruler in Panama,
it was a revenge kill. Even
that required
10 years later, I see like the entirety of America cheered when that happened because they saw him as attacking them, and because that was what was painted, and that was, I guess, the reality that they saw, and the reality that they felt, in that American civilian lives were definitely lost. 9/11 was a fucking tragedy. It's no one will ever deny that, and no one should ever deny that. What I think people also have to take into account is intention and the concept of blowback. The concept that a 9/11 was almost inevitable. Like a large scale terror attack on U.S. soil was almost inevitable. Just due to American violence across the world. And so your support of the American empire, like trying to go out and kill this guy 11 years later, for just like the fact that he for the fact that he had done that, is supporting the interests of the conglomerates and the military industrial complex that which birthed him in the first place.
Invasion. And then if you look at what could have gone wrong, you can go back to the Bay of Pigs or the attempt to rescue the Iran hostages back in 1980. I mean, President Trump looks pretty good today, but this could have been a disaster for the US.
Could have absolutely
yes, and this is hotly contested in Washington, the wisdom of such an outcome. And I tend to agree with the other speakers that the President Trump's strategy was to put pressure on the Maduro government to try and get concessions without having to use force. So there were initially negotiations and then sanctions and then military maneuvers around Venezuela. And it's only because none of that really seemed to be working that he presumably President Trump.
None of that seemed to be working for what goal? For what goal? Stopping narco-terrorism? What fucking narco-terrorism? For stopping drug cartels? Which cartel?
Authorize this.
For getting oil. I mean, even the fucking, what's her name? The opposition leader wanted to like literally just like open the entire country up to foreign investment as well. But she wasn't instated as the puppet leader. You know what I mean? Part of it is definitely just like having a better vantage point to have energy discussions and conversations with the rest of the world, because now the world is starting to starting to lose faith in the US dollar for its like value as a currency for trading energy, green and fossil fuel alike.
A limited use of force.
And they're starting to use the yuan.
And if it failed, then you're right. The U.S. would have been in a very difficult position, whether it would simply accept the failure of the mission or.
So yeah, no, I think if Maduro didn't want full control from America of American of Venezuelan oil and then like oil reserves thereof, despite the reality of the challenges that they were already facing, I think that's entirely respectable.
Double down and send in the Marines to occupy Caracas and so on. So I think it's been remarkably successful, and it's not only a success for the U.S. but for everybody, since we are avoiding, as far as we can tell for now, some of the worst possible outcomes. Though, you know, with the old regime.
Brother, what? Better for all of us. I think the best thing for all of us would have been to just not do it. Would have been to just be fucking normal. Just be normal. Just be normal. Just be a normal country. Just be like a country of people. Who the people on the ground can use their fucking political power in the fact that they pay taxes and the fact that they contribute to this state apparatus to say, to have a say in how this political apparatus is used, not only across the like seas overseas and abroad, right? And we can fucking audit the Pentagon and shit, but also generally speaking, just within the United States of America as well, because the American people do not live under a democracy and probably never have. We've lived under a bourgeois democracy, an aristocracy in which the people who own capital, the people who own the resources, the people who own the means of production, these CEOs, these shareholders, right? These people who take the profits first, right? The people who the profits of business go to first, right? That's who this country is built for. that is not even the small business owner. Although, the petit bourgeois has the ability to turn into the like genuine bourgeois. Um, but even then, the petit bourgeois is producing labor, is producing value from their actual labor, in which they have much more in common with the working class than they do with the billionaire owning class, pedophile owning class elites of just oh yeah, and they're all on a single island right now, aren't they? For the next couple days, was it? From New Year's Eve up till I did either today or the 5th. I can't remember.
Rallying forces, it's a little unclear what the next step's going to be and where we're going to end up with all this.
Of course, Phil, it does depend what the objective was. We know what the US says right now was the objective, which is simply to bring one man to trial. Do you think this was really about regime change? And if so, will that succeed?
Well, I think it was about a number of different things to different people within the administration. Clearly, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, a long-time proponent of regime change in Venezuela, was looking for that. But as your other speaker pointed out, this is not regime change. You know, we've seen the back of Maduro and his immediate family, but the regime remains in power. And I think there's a possibility here that what Trump is looking for, having failed to trigger the kind of reaction internally within Venezuela, particularly within the armed forces, that he was obviously seeking to do over the last few months, that this is a kind of consolation prize and this is a mission accomplished moment which will allow the US to say, well, it was always about drugs, really. And the reason why he's going to face trial is because he's a drug trafficker. And now that mission has been accomplished and we can withdraw the fleet. I mean, I don't think that means that the pressure will necessarily ease up on Venezuela. But I do think it means that those people who were imagining on the opposition side, who were imagining that it would be the departure of Maduro followed by the rapid arrival of Maria Corina Machado, the opposition leader, and Edmundo Gonzalez from Spain, and that there would be a smooth transition of power. I mean, that doesn't seem very likely
Not the
at this
case.
moment in time.
Temir, do you share that view that this seems to be for now over? Give us your assessment of how cohesive the Venezuelan security forces are. Is there still potentially clashes between different units? Is there an opening for the opposition in your view, or is it over for now?
No, I think the situation is far from over, since this type of, well, call it limited, but in the case of Venezuela, this is not limited at all. I mean, we should not treat lightly the fact that the United States of America, the mightiest military force in the world, has attacked a South American country. This doesn't happen every day. And this is a region that, even though has experienced, and I'll come back to that, internal turmoil and violence, that very
The
rarely
word
has
law
engaged
is
in
collapsed. I
foreign
don't
wars.
see any
So,
reason of
since
having a
the independence
UN.
of Latin American
Why are
nations,
we
in the
still
case
talking
of
about
Venezuela since the
international
19th
law
century,
after Gaza?
conflicts
True.
haven't
Not even
really happened
after
on its
Gaza,
ground. So
during
this is a
Gaza.
very, very serious.
Pandora's box is open. Washington didn't just kidnap a president, it kidnapped its last illusion of a rule-based world. That is true. That's shattered. This is gonna be an ego death for a lot of people as to the experience of seeing the world as seeing America as like world police. Either that or just like the final nail in the coffin. It's not capture, it's kidnap. I want my 550 billion. I told the FBI and CIA. The Maduro was in Venezuela. I Now China can take Taiwan, just go to a smaller country and do whatever you want. Trump, the president of peace. There are no implications because the world leaders are spineless. No, there are implications. What is like how is this going to result in the like what is this going to result into is what I want to understand.
Event, irrespective once again of the objective set by the United States. And second, you can
We
see
can look at
through
some
the
YouGov polling in a little bit.
statements made, of course, by the left-leaning governments, the latest being President Lula of Brazil, calling this an outrageous and illegal action from the United States that should mobilize the international community. We are in a region where U.S. intervening to set the course of political life in countries has never ended well. Let's remind the fact that Venezuela and Colombia are neighboring countries, that Colombia is subject to internal violence since the 1940s, and that the efforts to reach peace agreements with guerrilla groups there, well, some have been successful, but have never been, achieved fully. So the fact that the United States intervenes in Venezuela with military violence could potentially once again lead to if any further action is sought after by the Americans to shape the political landscape of Venezuela, should spark potentially internal violence, and that is a situation that you cannot just handle with aircraft
Right.
or firepower coming from the outside. If they want to shape the future of Venezuelan politics, they would likely have to have some.
Russia says U.S. action to attack Venezuela is an unacceptable violation of its sovereignty. Isn't isn't Maduro's vice president in Russia? I don't know. I thought I heard that somewhere, and that there was like like it was a Russian conspiracy, or conspiracy as in like America and Russia conspired to be like, hey, um, you let me do shit in Ukraine, I'll let you do shit in Venezuela or something like that. But even then, I don't even know what the connection between Russia and Venezuela is necessarily. Is the VP of where's the okay? Where is the VP of Venezuela? Because also you would expect the VP. Maduro is Venezuela's only president. Said the BP. Story by Ryan Mancini from 6 hours ago. Continue reading. The Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez on Saturday said that President Nicolás Maduro is the country's only president, several hours after U.S. troops captured him and his wife to face charges in New York. There's only one president in Venezuela, and his name is Nicolás Maduro Moros. I think I pronounced that right. Rodriguez said in a televised address to Venezuelans hours after the U.S. strike and Maduro's capture. The President Trump said that Rodriguez was sworn in as Venezuela's new president, but her show of support for Maduro's presidency appeared to dismiss Trump's remark. She told citizens that that the attack on Venezuela was barbarity and demanded the U.S. to release Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores. We've already warned that an aggression is underway. We had already warned that an aggression was underway under false excuses and false pretenses, and that the masks had fallen off, revealing only one objective: regime change in Venezuela, she said, according to the New York Times. This regime change would allow for the seizure of our energy, mineral, and natural resources. It is the true objective of the world, and international community must know it. And we fucking do. You want to know why? Because it came straight from the horse's mouth. He said it. Venezuela has our oil and we want it back. Not your oil. You can't just take it. That's larceny. And I learned that today. We learned so many things on this podcast. Rodriguez added that she's willing to talk and have respectful relations with the Trump administration, and so was what's his name, Maduro. The only thing we'll accept for a type of relationship is the only thing we'll accept for a type of relationship after having attacked, Rodriguez said, according to the Associated Press. Following the attack, Rodriguez said to the U.S. show Proof of Life to Maduro and Flores. She condemned the attacks and capture as complete brutal aggression against our people, which it is. The U.S. carried out strikes in the capital, Caracas, early Saturday morning. The forces entered Maduro's compound, arrested him and Flores, were both flown into the aircraft carrier in the USS Iwo Jima, headed for New York. Oh my God. Why do we have one name that? Attorney General Pam Bondi unsealed Maduro and Flores' indicting charges, which are a superseding indictment on Saturday that builds charges initially filed against Maduro in 2020. Trump told reporters from his Mar-a-Lago resorts. Ah! From his Mar-a-Lago resorts, he told reporters that the U.S. will run Venezuela until the country has a peaceful transition of power. He did not say if opposition leader Maria Machado would take over, claiming that she doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. Um, Imagine being her right now. I'm telling you, bro. I would be pissed as fuck. Machado praised Maduro's capture and wrote in a letter, even then she's still sucking on it. The hour of freedom has arrived. She said the opposition, she said, opposition leader Armando Rita, whom Maduro defeated in the 2024 elections amid allegations of widespread voter fraud, should take over. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! She is such a. She didn't even stand up for herself. She wanted. She wanted that. She wanted to be taken. It. Okay, Trump doesn't want me. That's okay. That's okay. The other guy can have it. No, she has to have some sort of fucking like. Um, is this the same article? Oh, I see. Yeah. Here it is. Wait. Venezuela strikes continue history of U.S. interventions in Latin America. The Monroe Doctrine. This half of the world is ours. Guatemala, Cuba, support for dictatorships. Nicaragua with Sandinista rebellions overthrew Somoza, and then we put in $20 fucking million into the fucking Contras in order to be able to partially funded by the illegal sale of arms to Iran. Crazy. I didn't even know that. Yeah, no, we paid the Contras to like shovel not only like just like disarray, but also drugs just like generally into Nicaragua. And my girlfriend's Nicaraguan, so this like hits a little closer to home as well. El Salvador, Grenada, Panama, um, not to mention across the world in Asia, um the Africa is Europe's thing. Africa is Europe's thing, which is America's thing by proxy. Um it's mainly France. And then the fucking IMF, which like yeah, like that's by proxy and whatnot. America by proxy. Iran's leader says rioters must be put in their place as okay, whatever. Not what I'm talking about. Keep the money flipping. It's all I know. Uh-oh. Fox News. Harris blasts Trump's administration capture of Venezuela as unlawful. Wait, what happened? Wait. Harris, what happened? I thought we wanted the strongest, most lethal military fighting force in the world. Isn't that what you said? Isn't that what you thought would win you the election? Isn't that why you let Trump present himself as the peace president? Is because you were open about your neoliberal agenda? Your violent settler colonial. Oh my god, I'm just like saying buzzwords, bro. Your absolutely vile global imperialist liberal agenda. The liberal agenda is the American empire agenda. We're all liberals in even any sense of that word, really. Just like socially speaking. Additionally, all of these guys will cry about racism the second they feel any sort of like threat from a black person on the basis of race or anything. You know what I mean? It's all liberals on that front, but then it's also all liberals as in liberalism, as in the implementation of bourgeois democracy as the main mode of economic strategic reality, as opposed to a more socialist or a more genuinely democratic sense of governance, in which the representatives or the like laws are directly decided upon by the people, and not you're not given the illusion of choice between choosing between someone who's gonna suck off billionaires and someone who's gonna fucking put on rainbow eyeshadow and then suck off billionaires. Anywho, we haven't finished this one.
Presence on the ground. And I think, once again, that it is very unlikely that
I'll
goes
go back to
well
the
and smoothly,
talks
given
later.
that, this whole new period had started by a military aggression and by a show of force by the United States. This is likely to backlash if they continue
Let me bring in
approach.
Richard on that point, because in the US, I suspect now, Americans are saying a great success, great military operation, and people are rallying around what President Trump has done. But down the line, if Venezuela, which is already a troubled country, starts to get worse, already very bad for the people there, if you start having clashes among the people, I think it was former General Colin Powell, the former Secretary of State and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who invoked the Pottery Barn rule, referring to a posh shop in the United States. If you break it, you own it.
What?
Right. So within the U.S.,
You break it, you buy it.
I mean, anything President Trump does, it's
I hope there's another Chavez pops out of the woodwork from this, in the event that this is just like, it just becomes a reality, that there's just like economic turmoil and we're just like plundering Venezuela for its oil and like disregarding its people entirely. And then there becomes like destabilizing violence and like competing violent factions across the region. If Venezuela becomes Africa, then I hope there comes another Chavez or a Maduro, or who's that one white guy? Who's the white boy who wanted to unify South America? Venezuela. Hold on, I'll look it up.
going to be contested. So there are those who are criticizing this action, saying the U.S. should have used other tools, gone to the UN or whatever. Now, there has been, though, rallying support among his Republicans in Congress and other elements of the base. And that's important because it was some of the Republican senators who were raising concerns about this whole operation in Venezuela. I'm not sure among the American people how important this issue is, how they'll view it. I'm pretty sure by the time the elections come in November, it won't have much of an impact, since people are going to vote more on inflation, health insurance, and so on. Internationally, what happens next, I do worry if this is it. If you just remove the leader and the old regime stays in power, that doesn't really solve the Venezuelan crisis. But going next and actually bringing back the opposition to power through some kind of transition would require a much greater effort, probably military, by the U.S. In worst case. Now, we don't know. The situation's still in flux. It's possible we'll see more developments in the next 24 hours and more like.
Did he just say we're gonna have to go back into
or whatever? Now, there has been, though, rallying support among his Republicans in Congress and other elements of the base. And that's important because it was some of the Republican senators who were raising concerns about this whole operation in Venezuela. I'm not sure among the American people how important this issue is.
Bolivar.
How they'll view it. I'm pretty sure by the time the elections
Simon
come in
Bolivar.
November, it won't have much of an impact, since people are going to vote more on inflation, health insurance, and so on. Internationally, what happens next, I do worry if this is it. If you just remove the leader and the old regime stays in power, that doesn't really solve the Venezuelan crisis. But going next and actually bringing back the opposition to power through some kind of transition would require a much greater effort, probably military, by the U.S. In worst case. Now, we don't know. The situation's still in flux. It's possible we'll see more developments in the next 24 hours and more likely. I think that would be the ideal outcome, have free and fair elections, and the opposition, which won the previous ballots, could actually take power. But if we just stop here, that doesn't look like that's a high probability.
Okay,
Right.
Phil, I mean, I think Temir is actually right in international law. There is very little doubt, this is the UN Charter, that this is something the US can't do. How will it be seen in the region, in the world, and I suspect particularly uncomfortable maybe for some of the US's closest allies? They've all been pretty muted. They don't know what to say. They know it's illegal, but
Right.
they don't want to upset President Trump.
Sure.
Well, you're right, and that's the world, unfortunately, that we're living in right now.
The Secretary of Defense for Venezuela, I saw on TikTok, had made a statement. I don't know if it amounts to like anything tangible necessarily yet.
It's not just the US, but other major powers around the world who do not believe in a rules-based order. They believe that might is right. Trump has made it very clear that he wants to re-establish US hegemony in the Western Hemisphere. That governments that don't do as the US wants will be subject to this kind of police action, as I suppose they might refer to it as. And I agree
Ew.
completely that those people that thought that this was a pro-democracy exercise, that this was about removing an undemocratic government and ushering in a peaceful transition to democracy, I think they're probably going to be disappointed.
Might is right. The only reason people believe in might is right is because they still believe in meritocracy.
It's quite possible that things will get worse. It's not at all. First of all, as you've already raised, there is a possibility that that things will not calm down from here. It may be that there will be internal conflict in Venezuela, and that could lead to protracted low-intensity warfare in the worst-case scenario. But even if that doesn't happen, it's not at all clear to me that removing Maduro and leaving the rest of these people in power is going to be a net gain for Venezuelans.
Okay, let me bring in Temir for the final word. As a former insider, what will you be watching in terms of events in Venezuela in the coming days? What do you think are the key indicators? Reasonably briefly, please, if you may.
The key indicators will be the manifestations of officials. We have seen today statements from the Minister of Defense, an acting general military, which is key within the power structure, a statement from the Vice President, who should be the next in line according to the Constitution. But we haven't seen, for instance, any institutional action in order to secure some sort of continuity of power. I believe because
she said that he's the only president.
The leaders of Chavismo are focusing on demanding the reinstatement of President Maduro. However, unlikely that may be, their posture is to not accept the fact that he has been removed. So in the following days, these institutional manifestations will, give a signal of unity within the power structure, and of course to see statements from the United States government and the leaders of the opposition that have been backed by the United States to see how they imagine the next steps will be. Once again, as the other panelists have said, I think nobody from outside Venezuela has a theory, a credible theory of transforming this situation into a transition to whatever comes next and avoiding violence. That's why I, once again, think this is a very, very dangerous moment.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of our guests today on Inside Story, Phil Gunson, Richard Weitz, and Temir Porras. This story is obviously dominating the news agenda, so stay tuned to Al Jazeera.
I'm gonna rewind just this one more time so I can pay attention again because I was tweeting.
So there are those who are criticizing this action, saying the U.S. should have used other tools, gone to the UN or whatever. Now, there has been, though, rallying support among his Republicans in Congress and other elements of the base. And that's important because it was from the Republican Senate, among the American people, how important this issue is, how they'll view it. I'm pretty sure by the time the elections come in November, it won't have much of an impact since people are going to vote more on inflation, health insurance.
No. I think this is going to have a massive impact now, and then it will have a lasting impact given if like it's just this and then nothing else until the elections, right? And somehow we like kind of coast through the rest of it. This will be brought up and then people will be like, what? No, that wasn't even that bad. Come on is what we're seeing now. But in the next coming like reality, more and more people are just gonna be like, yeah, no, this was low-key fucked. It's another domino falling. I don't think it's gonna be the thing that breaks the dam. The thing that breaks the dam is going to be Epstein. in however
So on.
poetic that is.
But you know, internationally, what happens next? I do worry if this is it. If you just remove the leader and the old regime stays in power, that doesn't really solve the Venezuelan crisis. But going next and actually
And there was no effort to.
bringing back
There was no reason. There was no
opposition
want
to power through some kind of transition would require a much greater effort, probably military, by the U.S. At worst case, now we don't know. The situation's still in flux. It's possible we'll see more developments in the next 24 hours and more likely. I think that would be the ideal outcome, have free and fair elections, and the opposition, which won the previous ballots, could actually take power. But if we just stop here, that doesn't look like that's a high probability.
Okay, Phil, I mean, I think Temir is actually right. In international law, there is very little doubt, this is the UN Charter, that this is something the US can't do. How will it be seen in the region, in the world, and I suspect particularly uncomfortable maybe for some of the US's closest allies? They've all been pretty neutral. They don't know what to say. They know it's illegal, but they don't.
What did I just drop on fucking Twitter? Profile. Just mad about mini Somalia. My favorite. Theocracy, but with more white people. Ooh. Hikey peak. But except it kind of isn't really even a theocracy necessarily. It's more just a ethno-supremacist state. It's an ethno state rather than a theocracy, I guess. Well, I wouldn't necessarily also even know. Enter the war, go, yes sir. Kind of. It's both. It's both. They're each other's dogs. Hating the US isn't xenophobia, it's inevitable. Genuinely. Okay, back to this one. What is Sophia Compton? Let's just like read Fox News generally. I don't really care about what Kamala Harris has to say. Like genuinely, that's just like not a thing that's in my head. Venezuelan golf star Vegas shares cryptic message. Oh no. Oh, this might be the most like impactful thing we read today, guys. Viva Venezuela. Carayo. Wait. Who's Carayo? Viva Venezuela. Oh, damn it all. Yeah. That's not cryptic whatsoever. That is I wonder what he meant by this. This sounds very, very interesting. This sounds very, very peculiar as to what his as to what he wants for for Venezuela. I wonder what his position is on the fact that we kidnapped his fucking president. Yeah. Anywho, on U.S. soil, Maduro arrives in Brooklyn detention center after helicopters fly past the Statue of Liberty. Zaran Mabdabic. Condemns Maduro captures, vow to protect New Yorkers. Yeah, what is Mamdani gonna do? Like, can he do anything? Because that is where he is. A group of about 20 U.S. investors is already planning a trip to Venezuela in March. Oh, yeah, I had this up earlier. This genuinely might be a little bit consequential if we can try to glean something. Investors are already eyeing financial opportunities in Venezuela following Maduro's ousting. Eyeing financial opportunities means they're sizing Venezuela up to see how much they can fuck it. Charles Mayers, chairman of Sigmund Global Advisors, said he's preparing to visit Venezuela in March for an investment in oil and tourism. Tourism! Oh my god, they are going to do Trump Venezuela. Will be the centerpiece of Venezuela recovery. A group of about 20 U.S. investors has already been... Charles Mayers, the chairman of the risky advisory firm. and former vice chairman of the investment advisory firm Evercore. I'm gonna look this up. Who are these? Who are these guys? Exclusive interview with this. They all look the same. Every CEO looks the same, bro. I'm telling you, bro. This is the straight. Wait, no. Okay, this is the archetype of who, fucking capitalism is supposed to serve. With all of the the parallel structures of bigotry, the parallel structures of creating any sort of like animosity between people, in so that a certain subsect of people can rise, in that all the rest are used as scapegoats for each other, and then certain people prosper while the rest of the entire planet is plunged and plundered into absolute hell. The straight white male, straight white, almost always able-bodied because they have the resources to like adjust even that, right? That is this guy. That is fucking Elon. That is Sam Altman, Donald John, Epstein, right? The white guys that like are fucking up the entire world aren't even necessarily just like teenage white boys, aren't even just like the fucking Twitter Nazis. It's these niggas. Anywho. Election won't shift U.S.-China relations. Israel will continue doing what it's doing, even with it. Yeah.
Your view is that we are on a long-term path of escalation in the region, not de-escalation. That's based on the situation that we see between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, but also the most recent strikes with the Houthis. Why do you say we're on a path of escalation here?
Yeah, I think unfortunately we need to be prepared for more escalation, really on two fronts. The Houthis are proving to be far more effective at disrupting international maritime trade, and the military response so far from the U.S. and the U.K. has not diminished or degraded their capability, which means we're going to need a much larger military response from the U.S. and the U.K. in the next.
Which is genuinely so impressive for like a rebel group that formed out of the poorest country in the world, right? I don't even think they have a stable government. It's like the Houthis at top, Saudi Arabia at the bottom, and then like I think the government that's not doing shit in the middle, maybe. I don't know. Something like that.
Out more of the Houthis' capability. So we need to watch that. On the other side, Israel
No, the Houthis are
on their path.
Hold on. Yeah. Political powers in Yemen. Okay. Wow. I was like seeing that entirely wrong. Yeah, I guess the top is more just like this side of it, yeah. It's the Houthi control or influence, Al Qaeda control, and then the loyalists of Hadi. Saudi Arabia is the Al Qaeda control. Saudi Arabia backs. Is it too late to start? Get your head out.
Gaza in the next
head out.
They are then now
Is it too late to start?
Which is to push Hezbollah 32 kilometers back into Lebanon.
Hezbollah.
It's even more controversial in a way from a geopolitical or military perspective, and we need to see what Hezbollah does to respond.
Israel and Netanyahu continuing to threaten this offensive in Rafah. That's despite international condemnation and clear concern in the region about the overall consequences of that. Charles, is there anything that the international community can do now to stop Netanyahu?
No, I think at this point, the War Cabinet in Israel is going to continue on their path, which they've told the world they're going to do, which is, again, the full conquest of Gaza. We may get a temporary ceasefire, which is, as you know, they're working on between the U.S., Qatar, and Israel and other countries. But even if it is a temporary ceasefire, Israel will go right back in and finish. They will take Rafah. Even the Biden administration, which has had a rhetorical pivot in the last week on Gaza, and really ratcheting up the rhetoric and the sort of threats against to Israel, saying, please slow down, please stop doing, please be more mindful of all the civilian casualties, for example. I think even with that pivot, Israel's going to keep doing exactly what they're doing.
Let's just focus over to Russia as well, because I know this is.
And this was last year. This is a year ago. Yeah, and he saw the writing on the wall because he could see the paper trails, right? He could see the reality that the American influence and the maritime trade that is being halted for the purpose of awakening people to Israeli genocide from the Houthis specifically, and other like armed rebellion groups, as the Houthis were doing blockades in solidarity with Palestine. That reality meant that the niggas in charge, right, the people who seek to profit, would have never told him to stop. Would have never been like, okay, yeah, no, this is good, right? Not only with just like the entire settler colonial project of Israel, it's just like there's no need for Israel to even like make any sort of consideration, because like the only ways that it's getting its money is from, to be able to do all that, is from the United States of America. And it's not only getting all of its money from the United States of America, America is getting all of that political power and money and influence directly from these powerful investors, these CEOs, these bourgeois peoples, the people who sit at the top of societies, your CEOs and your shareholders, and this nigga right here, basically. This is straight from the horse's mouth, by the way.
The focus for you. Putin's long-term nemesis, Alexei Navalny, is dead, and his death has drawn widespread condemnation from international leaders, including President Joe Biden, who said he was both, I quote, not surprised and outraged. The reaction from President...
That's this guy. Anywho, finish reading that article. So yeah, don't see anything like that and think, oh yeah, he's like actually just doing like regular political analysis. No, he's seeing that this is gonna hurt his bottom line, and then he's like, okay, yeah, this is kind of just what's happening. And then he's gonna put in political influence and monetary influence into Venezuela is what he wants as well. I think the centerpiece of Venezuela's success is looking out 12 months or even 24 months in its foreign investment. Myra said a big part of Venezuela's story starting today is foreign investment, especially in oil and gas. Foreign investments, plundering, pillaging, stealing, basically what the U.S. Not just the U.S., but what like Western powers have been doing to Nigeria, in that Nigeria produces over 400 million liters of oil a day, require 55 million liters of oil a day, and aren't even able to meet that quota. They produce over 5 times the amount of oil that they need to sustain their entire country, which they shouldn't even need. Ideally, we shouldn't be using much, if any. But like they produce over 5 times the amount that they need. And then, no, not 5, almost 10 actually. Yeah, because it's 425 million, something like that. Yeah, it's 400 million barrels of oil. They produce, they need 500, and they have to import 100 million barrels a day to be able to like stay afloat, like as a country, and to be able to have like gasoline for the niggas in fucking Nigeria. It's gonna be the same shit here. The centerpiece of Venezuela's success, looking out for 12 months. Myers said it's not the responsibility of his firm to take a moral position on whether it was right or wrong for the U.S. to involve itself in Venezuela. But, I mean, it's in our interest to, it's on our client's interest to anticipate investment opportunities or to mitigate risk due to geopolitical events. However, he added this firm very much expected the situation in Venezuela would unfold. Yeah, no, it's a shame. I mean, but it's not my place to say whether it's right or wrong. It's just my place to profit from it. Um, Signum previously hosted similar trips for asset managers and hedge funds to visit Syria and Ukraine. People have seen this coming, especially very smart investors. And many of them actually bought bonds in anticipation of this. Meyer said, but there's a very strong degree of cautious optimism, even more so than we saw with Syria, just because this is a United States directed action. Yeah, we're not using proxies anymore. The United States will play a pivotal role in everything Venezuelan economy starting today. So I think the reaction has been more enthusiastic. Woohoo! We are going to profit so fucking much. Yes! Yes! Trickle on me, daddy. Oh my god. Wait, what's his fucking name? What's the white guy's name? Myers? Trickle on me, Daddy Myers. Trickle on me, trickle on me, trickle on me. Give me all those treats to keep me fucking satisfied while you go and plunger the entirety of the global south and all of my family. All of the entire rest of the fucking world. This is awesome. This is awesome. And what do we get from this? Like I said, we get trickles, we get treats. Yeah, 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 yeah. U.S. plans to run Venezuela and tap its oil reserves after operation to oust Maduro. That is true. U.S. seizes oil producers spending billions in Venezuela. Here we go. Posted 30 minutes ago. Posted tomorrow in a different time zone. Trump delivered an ambitious revision to use U.S. financial resources and industry know-how to restore the South Americans' national oil sector to its former glory. Okay, we can see where I was gonna be like, okay, we can see where the bias lies within this article, in that it is a pro big business, pro American imperialist, pro fossil fuel slant, um despicable. And then on top of that, they had the fucking AI overview for their own fucking article. Couldn't even draft an abstract or some shit. So community organizations gather for Hands Off Venezuela rally in downtown Los Angeles. Okay. Let me refresh real quick. What the U.S. targeted in Venezuela communications and Venezuela court appoints Rodriguez as acting president. Okay. The Jerusalem Post. The Constitutional Chamber of Venezuela Supreme Court ordered Saturday that the vice president assume the role of acting president in the country in absence of Maduro. The post contained the caption "are blocked." Venezuela, I don't give a shit. where the U.S. State Department travel advisory issued a travel for do not travel due to severe risk to Americans. In that they do expect there to be a lot of that's damn. If the State Department is saying that, that means they have kind of no plans of actually affecting the like material good. They see that this will just cause animosity, and it will just cause more poverty and more like fucking violence and death and destruction and whatnot. Ay, 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 but they don't care because they have cautious optimism about the economic opportunities for pillaging, plundering, and being just overall dickheads, overall fucking dickheads, because that's all they do. That's all they know how to do. That's all they think with. That's all they only think with their dicks, and they get horny for power.
And then he was taken. So, I don't know, this just reeks. It reeks, especially with Trump seemingly abandoning the Venezuelan opposition all of a sudden. It really just seems like that this was like, or might have been either a betrayal by Delcy Rodriguez and the rest of the Venezuelan government of Maduro, or Maduro agreed to this in exchange for the US not invading Venezuela. And most of the Venezuelan military was simply stood down. The military installations were largely empty of troops under the excuse of there being, New Year's Eve or whatever. And it is all an extremely bizarre situation. Nonetheless, if you're American, you should have been doing stuff about this whole fucking time, right? I made a video like a month ago saying they're threatening to invade Venezuela, even if, it's not serious, even if they're just bluffing. You still have to get out and protest. You still have to, not even protest, do more than that. Please do something.
Right.
I beg you.
Literally
I have zero
anything.
faith in Americans at this point, man. People have been like more outraged at stuff like David Chappelle performing in Saudi Arabia than they have been at this. People have been more interested.
Genuinely, there is a reality that we have to recognize, which is niggas don't give a shit. A lot of niggas don't give a shit, and if they do, they think it's good. I think I'm just gonna fucking risk it for the biscuit. And we might as well just go for looking at, or I can just turn on. Oh my god, I forgot I have scenes. That's like the entire point of doing that. And then I can want some music behind it. So as a Venezuelan, is it good or bad for your country? What do you think, Einstein? I think it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious he thinks it's good. Didn't he just say, damn it all? Wait. It's good for everybody in Venezuela and everybody here in the U.S. except the Democrats. No, it's not. How? Genuinely. I don't understand. I don't understand the Epstein files. Trump still trending. Seahawks? Wait. Niners. Huh? Alright. Here's a video. Says. We're gonna start that video over again. Where is the statement of the so-called Nobel Prize winner who talks about peace when her country, Venezuela, has been attacked by American imperialism? Where are you? Where are the countries that haven't spoken out about this situation, about this moment? Where are the people and the working men and women? Demand first respect. Demand first respect, and second, we're out here in the streets. We're here because we believe in democracy, just like we went out and voted just this past July 18th for President Nicolás Maduro, and just like all the sectors of this country recognize his victory. And now we demand that the U.S. government, imperialism, and all transnationals who we know are behind this return our President Maduro to safe and sound. Is a post from whatever. The threat of fake Venezuela celebration videos, many of them mega viral posts, tens of millions of views, 100 million likes for lies. This is Operation Mockingbird. How do we... Adam. Analyst, commentator, geopolitics, BRICS news, breaking... This video is 8. Nick and Shirley post fake propaganda videos of Venezuela. Alex's video is 18 months old. Nick's video happened in Miami. They both got the call. They're the new Operation Mockingbird. Video. Millions of Venezuelans flooded the streets in Caracas. Millions of Venezuelans. Millions of Venezuelans. How do you do his voice? Millions of Venezuelans flooded the streets of Caracas, the other major cities, in celebration of the ouster of the communist dictator Nicolás Maduro. And now we want the same type of energy here on the home front. The domestic political equivalent of this incredibly decisive move in Venezuela is getting rid of the filibuster. We're acting like it's we are in the end game, and it's time to start acting like it. Low-key, get rid of the filibuster. I agree with that. Wait a minute. The MSM media lied to us again? The people of Venezuela actually didn't like being ruled by narco-terrorists? What narco-terrorists? World Cup-style celebrations are erupting all across Venezuela. Congratulations to the people of Venezuela. I can't read that word quickly. We got another one. The mega breaks are the enemy of truth. Massive crowds have taken to the streets of Venezuela to celebrate President Trump's capture of Nicolás Maduro. Someone should show this to the Democrats and the corporate media. Yet another one. This one's AI, apparently. Venezuelans are crying on their knees. Added English subtitles so you can understand them. People cry for their freedom. Thanks to the United States for freeing us. Thank you, the hero, Donald John Trump. There are going to be people celebrating. But it's, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as widespread as it's going to seem. Video shows IDF soldier firing towards Gaza on New Year's Eve during the supposed ceasefire. Classic Trump Obama meme resurfaces. Huh? Hilarious. Wait, where did I read that? What? The EA. What we should have done? Genuinely, please. We need to now. Yes, you knew it would happen. Okay. Nuclear deterrence beam trend? Okay, whatever. Rothschild? Okay. Rule-based order, New York City, Senator, Iraq War, Cold Wallet, terrorist. Epstein files Trump, Fernando Macron, commies, President Maduro. There it is. Why is it buried? Maduro was a dictator from 2017 to 2021. Trump was president then. They had oil then. Did nothing. So why now? Epstein knows why.
With the Democrats, maybe they'll take a shot. They'll take a shot. All they do is complain. They don't talk about, they should say, you know what? We did a great job. We're stopping drugs from coming into this country.
Right. This is literally what I've been saying. The catalyst for Trump actually pushing any sort of any of these policies, any of these measures is directly his ego, is directly his want to have a legacy aside from Epstein. He wants to be seen as a figure who's somehow this protector or savior of the world, and he knows he's not necessarily gonna get that from everybody, and so he's gonna be like, let me do something that everyone will like. I'll just call this guy a terrorist and then I'll stop him. And apparently with incredible ease, Mm. And originally he did want war with Mexico. Do not forget that. Remember, this is entirely about Trump's legacy. Um, the oil is just justification from his rich friends as to why this specifically is the thing that he's doing.
Nobody's been able to do it until we came along.
It's a distraction from
But
Epstein
they should
entirely.
say, great job. They shouldn't say, oh, gee, maybe it's not constitutional. You know, the same old stuff that we've been hearing for years and years and years. The Democrats, maybe they'll take a shot.
Yeah. To believe this is about drug smuggling, you have to ignore Trump's pardon of the former Honduran president for drug smuggling. To believe it's about Maduro's democratic legitimacy, you have to believe Trump even slightly cares about democratic legitimacy. Venezuela does not export its oils. Comparatively, the U.S. Is there more on that as well? Crude oil exports. You need to see the rates for what's it called? For Nigeria as well. On top of that, because again, largest oil reserves in the world, Venezuela. Largest oil producer in Africa, Nigeria. Except we do have Nigeria. We do have Nigerian oil. Like yeah, that is an active thing that we already are doing, is pillaging Nigeria for its oil. Um so I think the strikes in Nigeria were more likely about regaining political control, or like putting back like a foothold within the Sahel region generally, because the US and France were recently kicked out by the alliance of Sahel states and their military leaders, their military junta leaders. He literally said it was about the oil. I've been skeptical about all this oil stuff. It's just oil stuff in the past, but he literally said it. Yes. Yeah. Marjorie Taylor Greene on the capture of Maduro. If prosecuting narco-terrorists is a high priority, then why did President Trump pardon the former Honduras president Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was convicted and sentenced to 45 years of trafficking hundreds of tons of cocaine into America? That is what many MAGA thought they voted to end. Boy, were they wrong. What happened to her? She's not even, she's retiring too. It's like, if this was just like the energy of a like a cynical grifter who was just like cynically trying to get into like better positions of politics, seeing the writing on the wall that Trump is like going to actually like be um the freaking the fall of the Republican Party, right? And she just wants to come out on top on the Republicans or whatever, right? Why is she retiring? She low-key might just be a MAGA mom who got into politics and then realized it's all fucked up. Genuinely, she might be the most earnest person in politics. Unironically. It was never about the drugs. It was only ever about oil and trying to bury Epstein. Absolutely. After bombing Venezuela and abducting President Maduro, Trump said that the U.S. is going to run the country until there's a transition to pro-U.S. leadership. And I think that's come with the vice president now. This is blatant colonialism. Yeah. He boasted that the very large, this is like old school colonialism too. Well, now that Obama's poll numbers are in tailspin, watch him for his launch a drone strike in Libya or Iran. He's desperate. The United States is a rogue state, ignoring international law. Rogue, nigga. We wrote that shit. For the explicit purpose of we being able to break it. There's a reason that this all of this power, all of this like exploitation goes unchecked always, every time. The UN is an extension of the US. They're not going to do an investigation of themselves, and even if they find them guilty genuinely, the way that the US has set it up is like incredibly it handicaps the rest of the world. Um Beyond colonialism, extraction and abduction and theft, it's dangerous precedent when a leader capture, bombing, or even corporately carves up. Taiwan has nukes, though, doesn't it? Did Venezuela have nukes? Does Venezuela have nukes? He's in a Nike tag. He just like me, for real, for real. Okay. Whatever. He's not President Maduro. He lost badly. It wasn't even close. He then used his cartel army to violently take power. And you liberals are on social media doing everything but sucking him off from the back. Okay. Actually, cool. What's this next? When this week is Gonzalez taking power? Great question. Never. Because what's her name? Machado. Her like pick me behavior is icking Trump so bad. He's gonna do literally the opposite of whatever she says. I think we're just gonna look at the. No, actually, I genuinely don't care. About this election, the past election. I don't know if it's like actually. Meanwhile, back in the real world, okay, yeah. So he did one, I guess. So that's according to Wikipedia too. Oh, and then these are the sources for that. So yeah, even if this was like the actual case, and fucking this guy, this independent Gonzalez had like actually won and like taken power or whatever, but then used like a military coup to take power, that does not justify ever kidnapping a fucking president. A head of state just like entering and just like taking him. Crazy. We will see as more news starts to come out about the situation, as the reality continues to unfold. There will be new information. There will be new analysis to come, and it will paint the same picture, in that America has always been actively evil and will continue to actively be evil. But that's okay, because we do have a beautiful future. But it only comes after a really dark present. And that's okay. Not a good thing, terrible thing, awful thing. The ends never justify the means, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there will come a silver lining. Keep your head up. The world is actively pushing against it. The world is actively saying we don't want this. The world has been saying that for a long time. And the more they do stuff like this, the more we push to a point where I can actually see the fall of the American empire and the start of a reality in which humanity can start to heal. The fight against capitalism will not be over, but we'll have a bit longer to fight. And with that, I'm gonna let you go. It's 12:06 in the morning, January 4th, 2026. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Your support means the world. I love learning with everything. And I hope we get to learn more together soon. Thank you.